Excellent. Excellent. So in a typical bio introduction, you talk about their achievements, and they did this, and they did that, and they did this, and this, that. I think I'd like to take a different stab at introducing Lucas today. I met Lucas yesterday, and I would like to speak more about character, and when you meet someone in a very short period of time, and your impression of them, as opposed to all of his achievements in life. Lucas, you can take care of that later? Yeah, Lucas is a guy. Lucas will blow his own horn, as he spoke to me earlier about. But really, what we have in Lucas, in my personal assessment, in a very short period of time, a very gentle man, very, very soft-spoken. He looks at you in the eyes. Can I just say how nice it is to speak to someone when they're looking at you in the eyes? He does that right from the get-go. He smiled. He laughed at my jokes. That's always good. That's always points for me. But it's really a very, very kind man. I just got the impression that we have a leader. We have a leader. We have a subject matter expert in his category. But he did it in a gentle, humble way. He wasn't boastful. He showed interest in me. He did all the things that I'm trying to teach my kids. Show interest in others. It's not about you. Listen. Care for others. Make others the priority. In a very, very short period of time, in 2 or 3 interactions, Lucas did that to me. So with that introduction, we've got a man of character coming on board. I can't wait to hear what he has to share with us this morning. But Lucas, do you mind coming on board and telling us all about yourself? Good luck. Good luck.
Oh man, do we have to talk about sustainability? Oh, for sure we have bigger fish to fry, right? Well, I'm glad that you ask. Let's look at some figures. I did some Googling last night, and the year 2023 was the warmest year on the record. And I read that 11 months out of 12 were the warmest month ever. And we are on a trajectory to go to 3 to 4 degrees increase. As a result of that, we'll have extreme weather events. And it's calculated that that will cost the European economy alone approximately 55 billion per year. 70,000 people died just by heat stress. And for reference, that is the equal amount to the people who died because of the flu. And that's just with only 1 degree increase. Loss of biodiversity. I don't know if you know this, but we are living in what scientists call the 6th extinction. Never before, except for the time that a meteor hit the Earth, did we have such a loss of biodiversity, of life on Earth. We're losing about 10 to 100,000 species per year for good. And that is 1,000 or 10,000 times faster than what would normally occur. And according to the World Economic Forum, the loss of biodiversity will hit about 50% of our economy because we are dependent on biodiversity. Plastic waste, I know you use a lot of that. Globally, we use about 350 million tons a year of plastics. After reuse, usually single use. I mean, have you ever noticed that you buy a coffee or something at a snack bar or whatever, you use it for what? A few seconds and you throw it away? It's for only a few seconds that we use this plastic. We use about 350 million tons and then it's burned or we bury it underground. And microplastics in our environment will become one of the biggest issues that we have to deal with. And about 8 million tons every year end up in our oceans. Geopolitical tensions. I mean, we heard it already this morning. We have wars all over the planet. And as a result of that, we don't want to be dependent in our economies anymore of other economies. So we want to keep the energies and the materials within our own economy. And as a result of all of that, there's European legislation. You got the CSRD, you got the EUDD, and there's more coming actually. And all of these legislations will ask more and more of companies, perhaps not you yet, but certainly your clients will have to report on them, will have to do risk assessments, and pretty soon they will have to deal, or we have to come up with strategies on how to close the gap. Let me ask you a question. How many of you think that these topics and these trends will, in the future, fundamentally affect your sector, your business? Thank you. How many will say, nah? Okay, it's hard to see, but I don't think I'll see any hands. So that's great. So these topics will fundamentally change your business, right? So if it's so important, tell me, how many of you think, yeah, but it's important, but we got it covered. A little bit more to the left, a little bit more to the right, but we got it covered. Nobody. All right. Well, then how many of you think that in order to really change, not only you have to change, but your whole sector needs to change, your clients, the whole value chain, everything? Excellent, because that's what I want to talk about. How do you change a sector? How do you change a system? How do you do that in a way that it also leads to business opportunities? That's my area of expertise. I was already kindly introduced today. I have never been introduced in a way like this, so I'm very humble. But let me introduce myself while blowing my own horn a little bit. So my name is Lucas Simons, and ever since I was 10 years old, I'm fascinated with what we now call system change or market transformation or transition management. I didn't know these words by then, but something happened in my life when I was 10 years old that I saw something on television, and I started asking myself two questions. The first one is, why on earth do we do as humans, as society, why on earth do we do these things while we know it's not responsible, while we know it's not the right thing to do? And then everybody says, yeah, but we have to, and the others are doing it as well, and I can't help myself, and who cares what I do, I don't have an influence. And the second question is, how do you change that? And these two questions have driven me for the rest of my life. I studied sustainability, I worked on sustainability ever since. And I did a few jobs, and then a lot of things fell into place when I had the opportunity. I was 30 years old, I was just a young guy. I had the opportunity to set up a certification program for responsible coffee. Now, I'm sure you know Fairtrade Max Havelaar, right? Yeah? Well, that's not it. That certification program has about 3% market share. And you got organic coffee as well, I'm sure you heard about that as well, that has about 0.1% market share. And I was asked by the founders of this label to say, can we come up with something for the other 97%? I was 30 years old, I never saw a coffee tree in my life, and for me everything fell into place and said, yeah, we can do that. And we went to work, and we worked very hard, and in a few years' time we became the largest certification program in the world. It's called UTZ, UTZ Certified. I don't know if you heard about it, because deliberately we were not going front of pack, we were end of pack. By the way, the label is now out of the market, it has merged with another label, but I was tasked with the question, can we come up with a certification program for the other 97%? And we got quite far. In the Netherlands, where I came from, we had a market share of 60%. In Europe, about 30–40%. Globally, the largest certification program. And in 2006, I went into cocoa for the chocolate. And immediately we became the largest certification program in chocolate. And we went to other agri-commodities, and I loved it. I was living in an airplane. I had 17 offices all over the world. I traveled to all of these countries who were producing coffee, tea, cocoa, soy, palm oil. And I saw the same thing everywhere. The same problems, environmental, social, economic, the same root causes. Every sector is trying to do the same thing. They make the same mistakes. Everybody had the same arguments why it could not be done. And every sector, every person, every organization tried to convince me that, no, wait a minute, you have to really understand, it's really impossible. For the others, it's easy, but for me, I can't do it. And everybody used the same arguments. And so when I left the certification program, I thought, okay, so what did I see? What are the patterns? And I wrote a book called Changing the Food Game in 2014. And in there I said, okay, so this is, I think, why all these markets become unsustainable, and these are the patterns, systemic patterns, and these are phases that you have to go through in order to change it. And the book, well, it was a nice hit, but more importantly, it led to a very intense collaboration with one of the leading business schools in the Netherlands called Nyenrode Business University. And together with them, we broadened this theory, we scientifically backed it up, we translated it into other sectors, and together we wrote the book Changing the Game. And we turned it into a training. And by now we've trained hundreds and hundreds of people, not just on the executive MBA at Nyenrode, but also in company, governments, businesses, etc. And it's one of the most applied system change theories out there. And today I would like to, in the next 45 minutes, give you more or less the same presentation that I give to the executive MBA at Nyenrode. So you're going to give that for free. I can't give you a certificate, but that's my gift to you today. All right, are you ready? Yes. Very good. So, From now on, you are change makers, system change makers in training. And for every system change maker, there are 3 things that you have to remember. Because let's be honest, in 2 weeks' time, perhaps 3, you've forgotten about me. You've forgotten about this speech, yes, something with sustainability, yeah, a guy on stage. But I hope that you remember 3 things. And the first thing is, when we are talking about systems, is that the problem is not the problem. That climate change, or that nitrogen, or that plastic waste, it's not a problem to be solved, it's a natural outcome of the system. And so what on earth is a system? The system is us, every one of us, with a capital U. It's us. Every day we wake up, and every day we make certain decisions. What to buy, what not to buy, with whom to collaborate, who not to collaborate, what we research, what we don't research, what we invest in, what we don't invest in, with whom we work with. What we allow, what we don't allow. And the outcome of all of those decisions is the problem. It leads to the problem. And so system thinkers don't think about how do I solve the problem. System thinkers think about why do we do what we do in the first place. That leads to the problem. And how can I change that? So the problem is not the problem, it's a natural outcome of the system. The second is, if that is true, if the problem is not the problem, but a natural outcome of the system, then unfortunately there are no quick fixes or easy solutions. I wish it was like that. There are no quick fixes. And that means that in order to change it, in order to change that system, it will take a little bit longer. And as we all know, change processes goes through phases. And what you do in the start of a change process is different than what you do in the middle, and it's certainly different again what you do at the end. And so these phases are very crucial in understanding where we are and what we need to do in order to change the system. Because each phase is unique. Each phase will require different strategies, different do's and different don'ts. So these are the 3 things which I hope you remember for the rest of your life. If you want to change the system, or if you want to understand the system that you're in, understand that the problem is not the problem, it's a natural outcome of the system. If that is true, there are no easy quick fixes. It will be a change process. Every change process goes through phases, and every phase is unique. I will, of course, explain this to you in detail. All right. Now, first of all, when we talk about climate change or plastic waste or whatever, we like to call that a complex solution, or a complex problem, sorry. And then we like to look very serious, like it's complex. It's complex. And of course, we do that to already say to everybody, well, listen, we're not going to really do something about it because it's complex. And the other one is it will make us very smart. But have you any idea what makes a problem complex? Have you any idea? What makes something complex? You sorry?
We don't know how to solve it.
We don't know how to solve it? Okay, very good. We don't know the solutions yet.
Not understanding the problem.
We don't understand the problem. Very good.
Many players.
Many players, absolutely.
Assumptions.
Assumptions.
Disagreement.
Disagreement. Very good. I like to flatten it very much. So what is a complex problem? What makes a sustainability problem complex? Well, first of all, is that, and I heard somebody said it as well, is that it's difficult to change. It's difficult to solve it, and there are many different reasons, because the alternatives or the solutions are not ready yet, or we don't really understand how it works, or there's not a clear causality, or there are many different reasons. The other one, and it's already mentioned as well, is that in order to change, many other stakeholders, many other actors also need to change, but they have opposite interest. And if you're in the upper right corner there, you have a complex problem. And if you have a complex problem, please don't try to solve it with simple solutions. We have to come up with a more complex solution, a complex strategy. And so my question to you is, the sustainability issues in your sector, how complex are they? How difficult is it for you to change? And is it true that many other stakeholders in your sector also need to change? So where would you place yourself, more or less? Where would it be? Upright? So you have something of a complex problem. Well, luckily for you, I've seen many different sectors. It's not the most complex transition that you're in, because the solutions that we'll be talking about are doable. It's true, however, that you need many other stakeholders to also change in order to make it lasting, in order to make it economically viable. But yes, it is a system transformation. So that means that the theory that we're going to discuss today is applicable. And the lucky thing, or lucky, I don't know, you're not alone. Every market that I can think of is currently in transition. I mean, is the agricultural system in transition? Yes or no? The energy market, is that in transition? The mobility and transport, are you in transition? The financial sector, mining, textile. The other day, I was sitting in front of a conference like you for the car recycling industry. Golden neckline chains. And they were looking at me a little bit like you're doing now, like, what is that guy talking about? These guys are, if you have a car accident, they take it off and they recycle, they shred your car. And this is their business, but they are in transition because what happens if we move to circular cars? Can you still shred them? Who owns the materials? What if we go to biodegradable cars or electric? You can't shred them anymore. Who owns the information? Their whole sector was faced with fundamental questions. And so even a car recycling industry is in transition. So every market currently that I can think of at least is facing similar problems. And you know what? They're all asking the same questions. Who's going to pay for it? Who bears the risk? How do you work together in a value chain differently? What is the role of new technologies or new concepts? What is the role of the government? Why are they not doing anything? Do you recognize these questions? Every sector asks the same question. So you're special, but you're not unique when it comes to these questions. I do have to say, yesterday I said, well, every sector says they're unique, but I have to say, you are a unique sector. It's very, very, very warm feelings that I get. You're like a family, and it's really special. But when it comes to your transition, your sustainability challenges, and all of your questions that you have there, you are the same as every other sector. So every sector is the same. So how come, if every sector has the same transition, then it cannot be a coincidence anymore. It has to be a systemic pattern. So let's look at that. Who knows this game? I mean, we're here with, what, 50 nationalities? Who knows this game? What is this game? Monopoly. And I'm trying to make it difficult because it's a German version with American dollars, and you all know it. Great. So what's the outcome of this game? If you play this game long enough, what's the outcome? You become rich. One person has all the houses, homes, hotels, streets, stations, and the rest is bankrupt, right? And we love it. Or in jail, absolutely. So what if you play this game 10 times? What is 10 times the outcome? Different outcome? Really? Same outcome, somebody else might win. But the same outcome. One person has all the houses and the streets and the stations, and the rest is bankrupt or in jail. Oh my God, if you would play this game 1,000 times, what would be 1,000 times the outcome? How come? How come that you get the same outcome every time? The rules are the same. Duh. If you play this game according to the same rules, you got the same outcome, right? I got 3 children. I got 2 daughters and 1 son. And they're now teenagers. They don't want to play with me anymore. I'm not cool. But I used to play with them, and sometimes I win and sometimes I lose. Doesn't matter. But if I would win, then my daughters would say, oh, congratulations, how nice. They would help me clean or repack the game. My son would go berserk. And he would throw over it's not fair. Would it help if I say to my son, by the way, this is true, would it help if I would say to my son, oh dear, you're losing, here's some Monopoly money, and I would lend him some money? Would that help? Would that change the game? Who has done that? Be honest. Yeah, very good. Who? Really not? You should do this. Absolutely. So you're there, you're winning, you got 80% of everything already, or it's a matter of time before they land on you anyway. They come on your hotel, they have to give you everything. You see that quivering lip, that tear in their eye, and you lend them some money, with interest, of course. You can go one more round. You see the dependency in their eyes, and meanwhile, you're the good guy. I can highly recommend it. Anyway, does it change the outcome of the game? No. What if I would train my kids to become the best Monopoly players in the world? Would it change the outcome of the game? Perhaps they would win more, but does it change the outcome of the game? No. What is the only way to get to a different outcome? Change the rules. So if every market that I can think of, including your market, is facing with these complex sustainability challenges, could it be that it has to do with the rules of the game? And if you really want to change it, then we need to understand what those rules are and how do you change those rules in order to come to another outcome. And this is where system thinking comes into place. Oh yes, I have to correct myself, because for years I thought I was a bad parent. How can my son be so angry every time? Until they even made a commercial out of it. I feel much better. Perhaps this will help some of you as well in the audience. We're not bad parents. It's part of the learning experience. Anyway, this is where system thinking comes into place. And now it becomes technical, but I promise you, in 2 minutes, you'll become system thinkers as well. Because what is system thinking? System thinkers do not think in linear, like problem solution or cause and effect, very straight relationships. No. We like to think in what we call loops. And what is a loop? Something happens that leads to something, therefore something happens again, and now we have a problem. But in society or in your sector, as you know, never one thing happens at the same time. So while this happens, something else happens again. And that leads to something, and that leads to something, and now they come together. And then they can enforce each other or balance each other out. Some of you might remember this from your classes in physics. What happens if two little waves meet each other? Do you remember this? I love this one. Yeah? They're passing through. What happens when this... Yes. Exactly. You get this, and a whoop, or whoop. That's what happens in real life as well. They either balance each other out, or they reinforce each other. And so just to give you an idea, what happens if you put 10 rabbits together? You get a lot of rabbits, right? So that's a reinforcing loop. More leads to more leads to more. And the problem is with a reinforcing loop, if you don't touch it, it will end in two ways only. Implosion or explosion. There's no other way. If something is always leading to more, at some point, boom. Because what happens if you leave those rabbits alone? At some point, there's no physical space, no oxygen, no food, no something else happens, and then boom, the whole population collapses. That's a reinforcing loop. But what happens if I would introduce foxes to this system? Exactly. The foxes will start probably hunting the rabbits. They will increase, and at some point, they will balance each other out. Forget everything. This is just, like I said, well, it's an executive MBA. I need to teach you something. So, what are the rules of the game of your sector, of every sector, that leads to these problems, to these sustainability problems? And then rather than loops, I'm going to ask you 4 questions. Now, I'm going to talk about a different sector. Why? Because I'm not an expert in your sector, and I don't want you to say, no, that's not true. I'm going to talk about another sector, and it's also helpful to look at how other sectors work as a sort of looking in the mirror. I'm going to talk about agriculture. And why? Because agriculture is almost the mother of failing systems everywhere. And perhaps the same patterns we see in agriculture are true for your sectors as well. The first one, loop number 1. What is the market competing on? Are we looking for the best products, the best mice, the best eggs, the best dairy products, the best tomatoes? Rich, quality, fresh produced, sustainably produced, and we're willing to pay for it. Is that what we're competing on? Or is it lowest price, we don't care? Exactly. And so as soon as you know what is your sector competing on? And so as soon as your sector, if you know what a market is competing on, you can understand 2 things. Because what will these farmers do? They will try to become the lowest price producers. And how do you do that? Become bigger, be more intensive, but also to put all of the costs to others, to their suppliers, to everybody in the value chain tries to be the low-cost producer and puts the lowest cost on somebody else and the risk somebody else, but also it will help you understand what they will not do. Because what will these farmers not do? Invest in water quality or air pollution or whatever. That's not what they will do, because that's not how you win the game. So the first loop, and there are 4, is what is the market competing on, and why is that causing sustainability problems? Why are you using single-use plastics? Why are you using the easiest air travels? Why are you having all of these sustainability issues? What is that, how is that helping you to win the business? That's the first one. The second is what we call the policy regime, and this is the government. And this is, in agriculture, we're subsidizing agriculture, we're helping everybody just to produce more food. In your sector, we're not taxing air traffics, the kerosene is not taxed. There are many policies to stimulate this, and so there's a lot of policies and laws and permits and research to strengthen this industry. So these 2 are coming together. The third one is, who feels the consequences? So who is hurt by the fact that we have an agricultural system that leads to so many sustainability issues? Is that the farmer? Not necessarily. Is that the retailer? Not necessarily. And so the ones that are benefiting the system are usually not the ones that feel the direct consequences of your unsustainable system. This is a sort of system law. I have a very personal story to tell, and I feel I can do it in this safe environment, but please don't tell this to others. But I was 10 years old as well. No, I was 6 years old. Sorry for that. And I did it twice, and I still don't know why I did it, but I saw a piece of iron, a string, a copper wire. I picked it up, and I went to an electrical socket. And I put it in. Poof! I had hair at that time, and I was laying on the ground. Oh my God. After I woke up, I took up the copper wire again, and I walked to another electrical socket, because I'm not stupid, huh? And I did it again. Boof! That was the last time I did it. Then I saw the pattern. That negative feedback that I got ensured that I would never do that again. I learned my lesson. You know what the issue is? In systems like this, the negative consequences you don't feel. You don't feel the plastic pollution. You don't feel the climate change. You only have the benefits of continuing doing what you're doing, but the ones that are benefiting from the systems are never the ones that are feeling the consequences. And then the last one, if the fourth one is there, then we're stuck. And that is, how attractive are the alternatives? Can we make the agricultural system more sustainable, yes or no? Can we make your sector more sustainable, yes or no? Why don't we? Nobody wants to pay. It's more expensive. There's no demand. It's not insured. We don't know what it will give us. There are easily 10 reasons why we don't do it. The sustainable alternatives are not attractive yet. If they were attractive, we would sell them. That was easy. But somehow they're not attractive. Now, what is the outcome of this game? System change makers. If markets compete on the lowest price, and therefore they externalize, we have a whole policy regime of saying, okay, let's do more of this, let's do more of it, let's incentivize it. We don't feel the negative consequences, and the alternatives are not attractive. What is the outcome of this game? No change. We know we have a problem, but hey, I can't help it. Somebody else needs to do it. And so when you ask that farmer, why are you doing this? You see the issues, right? We have lost, in the Netherlands, we have lost 80% of our insects. I'm not kidding. It's like kicking the chair out of under life itself. We have lost 80% of our insects, mostly because of our agricultural system. If you ask that farmer, why are you doing it? What is his answer? I have to. If I don't do it, somebody else will do it. I will not get my contract. I have to do it. By the way, they're not willing to pay for it. And of course, they're pointing to the retailer. And you ask the retailers, why are you doing this? You see what's happening. What's their answer? I have to do it. Because if I increase the prices, then the consumers will walk out. I have to do it. By the way, you are not paying more for it. And then, of course, you're looking at the consumer. Now, I'm sure you are an exception to the rule. I'm sure. But 95 to 98% of the consumers is not willing or able to pay more for the products. They also don't understand it. You're lucky if they buy your product. And so we're all pointing to each other. It's my supplier. They don't want to do it. No, it's my client. If you want it, you need to pay for it. No, it's the bank. I can only get a loan if I have a business model where I can show that I'm not investing in sustainability, but I'm investing in more production. No, it's my off-taker. It's the consumer. And of course, it's the government. They have done it. It's their fault. And the government looks back and says, well, I would like the sector to deal with it themselves. And we're all pointing at each other. And if I've learned one thing, is that if we all point to each other, then clearly we have developed a sector where the incentives are wrong. Because apparently when you're unsustainable, you win. And if you try to become sustainable, you lose. And so how do you break that? Well, clearly the problem is not the problem, it's an outcome of the system. And so if that is true, then there's no easy solutions, there's no easy quick fixes, it's a change process. So how do you change it? And then we come to transition management. And it looks like this. I think this speaks for itself. Are there any questions? I will tell you. Every transition is different. Your sector is different than the agricultural system, is different than the financial system, is different than the construction, is different than infrastructure. It's all different. So every transition is unique. But if you take one step back, they're remarkably the same. And let me explain to you how it works. Because every sector moves from A to B. So what is A? The A is how your sector works now, with all the sustainability issues that it has. B is, from A to better, is where you want to be. So, the same sector, you still want to have a thriving sector, but now sustainable. So the question is how you get from A to B. And in order to get there, we always need to increase sustainability practices and phase out unsustainability practices. It never goes at once, it always goes through phases, and I will not bore you with that. There will always have to be 5 success conditions there. These phases are important, and I can best explain them with children growing up. Some of you will have children, others not, but then perhaps you know people with children. If not, perhaps you have been a child yourself. It's important to have this reference, because if I'm a young father and I have a small little baby in my arm, please help me. What should I do now? Can you help me? What do I need to do? Feed it. With what? Milk, baby food. I might need to give it diapers. It needs to sleep a lot. I give it a little burp and then it burps over my shoulder. It cries a lot. It cannot walk and it's so adorable. At some point, the children grow up and then they become teenager. And I hope by that time that you have stopped with the baby food and with the diapers and it doesn't burp over your shoulder anymore. And you can say, hey, you want to have a beer? You want to have a pizza? And can you please clean up your room? And then again, when your child grows older and goes out of the home, then you have discussions about buying a house or a relationship or your first career. And I hope you don't have to explain again that they have to clean up their room. As responsible parents, we know this. Every phase asks for certain things that we do and certain things that we don't do. But this wisdom goes out of the window as soon as we have to deal with sustainability. And let me prove this to you. If all the organization in your sector, in the moving and relocation sector, if all the organizations that are trying to make your sector more sustainable, perhaps governments or NGOs or research or companies or whatever, if all of the organizations in your sector that are trying to make your sector more sustainable would have a musical instrument, what kind of music are we making together? Classical music? Would there be classical music? If all of the organizations in your sector that are trying to work on sustainability would have a musical instrument, what music are we making together? Chaos, sorry? Cacophony? Dissonance. Dissonance. Chaos, cacophony, noise. It's interesting because I've asked these questions for the last 20 years in every sector all over the world, from the World Bank to the farmers in Vietnam to Africa to every sector, CEOs, World Economic Forum, and the answer is always the same. We're just making noise. We're just doing. Everybody has their own favorite. No, we have to do a certification. No, the government needs to action. No, we need pilots. We need more research. Everybody does their own project. And the trick from transitions is to go from noise to music. And so how do you do that? The phases are crucial. And when I will explain to them, you will recognize a lot. So what is that first phase? That is the phase where your sector works as it does, how it normally works. You get your orders, you move your client as cheap as possible, as fast as possible, with all the care that you want to give it. You hope to send an invoice, you hope to get paid, it's hard work. You know you have a problem, because you know about your climate change, you know that there's a lot of plastic use, you know about all of these things. But in this phase, you don't consider it a problem. And this happens in every sector. We know we have issues, but we don't consider that a problem. And this will continue as long as possible until there's a crisis. And that crisis will come sooner or later. And you know what the interesting thing is? As soon as the crisis comes, how does the sector react? No, it's not true. We're measuring it wrong. We're trying to do it right. No, it's somebody else's fault. You're trying to deny it as long as possible. But if the crisis comes back, then at some point, your first organizations will go to the first phase. And this is a wonderful phase for some of you, because this is the phase of pilots and projects, where most of you will do beautiful pilots, and we're all trying different things, and we all claim impact, and we have beautiful websites with different pictures, and the sun is always shining, and you claim your impact. Look at what we're doing. This is the baby phase. You're crawling around, you put everything in your mouth, we have no clue what we're doing, but it is very sweet. There's a good and there's a bad way to go through this phase. The bad way is thinking that more projects will solve the issue, will change the system. It never does. The good way is that we have to learn what the solutions are. And as soon as we've learned that, we need to please stop with the projects and the baby food, and we need to go to the second phase. And this is where most of you will recognize that there's a shortage. Because the second phase is, if you're trying to implement it, then there needs to be a business case. Your clients need to pay for it. Why? Because you have first mover risk, you have first mover cost, and it's not a hobby. You're doing this, of course, to be sustainable, but also to differentiate yourself in the market. And so this phase, the second phase, is all about how do we create a business case so that the ones that are the first movers are actually winning. And you know, the beautiful thing is, if the first movers win, what will the second and the third and the fourth movers do? The same, but slightly different. Because you never follow your competitor, you will try to do it slightly different, and this is where we have all kinds of marketing and programs and different standards competing with each other. Just to give you an example, there are 8 standards for sustainable coffee. There are 6 standards for sustainable cocoa. There are 15 standards international for cut flowers and plants. There are 51 for sustainable fish. And in the Netherlands alone, we have 10 different standards for sustainable dairy. This is how an industry is competing with each other on sustainability. This is the competition, the teenager phase. Look at me, I'm the best. If you have competition and supply and demand, phase 2, then we need to move to the next phase. And this is how do we scale it? How do we remove barriers? How can we change policies? How can we change financial structures? How can we scale this up? And how can we put maximum pressure on the old way of doing business? And if we're successful in that phase, then and only then can governments come in and say, okay, now it's done, and we will no longer allow the old way of business. This is the new way of doing things. And then the market tips. This is how transitions work everywhere, also in your sector. And so if this is true, then we can start managing it. Because then the question is, what are the solutions that we want to see more of, the green line? And in which phase are they? And can we organize each other, ourselves, to make sure that we are accelerating the phases? And so it's like a chess game. Everybody knows chess, and nobody has ever won a chess game by just attacking with one piece on the chessboard, like most of you are doing. This is my company, and this is my project, and I'm trying to make it sustainable. That's not how you change a sector. The question is, where are we moving as a sector? What is our commitment as a sector? And my personal belief is you should start committing to 2050, zero emission, zero waste, to have a big, bold goal, like many other sectors. What are the solutions that will bring you there, the green? In which phase are they? And therefore, where are my first movers? Where's the government? Where are banks? Where are NGOs? How can we start playing the chess so we can change the system? And for that, you don't have to read that, but we have worked this out for you in detail. Because for every phase, and for every success condition even, we have worked out the most applied strategies to scale up the sustainability solutions and to phase out the unsustainable practices. We even have figured out who should be doing what. What is the role of the government? What is the role of banks? What is the role of your clients? What is the role of you? What is the role of NGOs? And now we can start managing it. And so this is the theory. But you're not interested in the theory, you're interested in what does it mean for your sector. And so I've read a lot of documents and I've looked at a lot of websites, and this is what I came up with. So there's something that's called the blueprint for a green move. I think it's a great document that spells out different solutions, different interventions, different tactics, different things that you can do in order to make a move more greener. And then you make a distinction between the before the move and during the move and after the move. And I'm not an expert in your industry, so I'm not trying to be perfect or complete. I just took a few examples out there and tried to put them in the phases. And so virtual tours, I think that is something that we're now seeing phase one, the first pilots and the first projects. Could be wrong, but I think it's over there. Then you have a lot of other things that you can do. You can use electrical vehicles and reusable and recyclable protection products. And we should do less air and more ship or rail and energy efficient warehouses. And we also have something of reusing the packaging materials at the end. These are all solutions that you can do. But if I looked around at your websites and I've looked around at your documents, I would consider them all in the pilot phase and the project phase. There's not really supply and demand. And the big question is, how can we go to phase two? How can we make sure that this is demanded by your clients and there's a willingness to pay? And so the big question is, how do we move to phase two with these things? And for that, I would like to end with 5 concrete suggestions that you as a sector can do in order to accelerate these solutions and turn them into a business opportunity. And some of these you're already doing as a sector. The first one, start measuring the sustainability footprint. I heard today, and there's this carbon calculator, amazing, start using that. Also, how much plastic are you using? How much other, on social issues. We need to start measuring what is the footprint of your sector. If you don't do that, you have no clue what you're up against, but there's also no way for you to start creating value for your clients. You need to have an idea of your footprint, because then you can also show what you're doing to reduce it that is of value for your client. That's one, and the other one is you need to commit to a vision. It's not enough to say, yeah, we're trying. No. The sector, your sector, needs to have a vision. Again, I would recommend 2050, zero emission, zero waste, as a very clear goal. That is where you're moving, just like in line with many other sectors out there. That's one, start measuring and have a vision. 2, rather than we do a project here and a project there, create a product, a standard. This is what we call a green move. Like, for example, this blueprint. And make sure that if you can sell that to the client and it's certified, so that they know that it's absolutely a credible product that you're buying. These sector sustainability standards, you don't do that by yourself. You develop that with input from your clients so that the clients know that what you're doing is also of relevance for them. So how to create a sustainability product standard together with key stakeholders that include all of these best practices. 3, don't try to get everybody on board. Everybody needs to be there. No. We're going into the competition phase. So we only want to work with the first movers. If you're not interested, if you think that this is not relevant for you, don't be here. I mean, just look around. This morning, we had a packed hall. Now, 50% or 60% or 40%, I'm not sure, is empty. Not everybody is interested in sustainability. Great. This is for those who want to move. The first movers. Let's get organized. The rest, they will come later, or they will become a part of the red line. And this is how transitions work. There will be winners and losers. And our responsibility is to make sure that the first movers get connected. So how do we get organized with the first movers and connect them to clients, but also to other sectors? What's happening in the shipping industry? What's happening in the plastic industry? Can we start helping them, and can they help us? This can be organized. The fourth one, you guys need help. So we can create support structures in terms of research and tools and knowledge. This can be organized as well, so that you can become certified, so that you know what's going on. And then the last one, and this is so important, don't see this as something that you do and then hope that your clients will buy it and be willing to pay for it. This requires effort. Other sectors have become very creative in making sure that their clients are also incentivized to buy sustainable products. How can you do it? Well, we can promote, of course, the standard and your sustainability issues and the impact that you're having. There can be rankings. There are a lot of rankings out there. Who is the most sustainable client, right? And who is, of course, lowest of the bottom. Nobody wants to be at the end of the list. And so these are incentive structures for your clients also to become more sustainable. And with your product, they have something to show for. They can claim impact as well. They can tell to their employers, we're using sustainable moving actors. And so they need something to claim as well. That's why this certification standard is so important. You can give awards to clients. Other sectors are very creative at that, putting clients on stage. Look at them, they're doing amazing. Of course, the implicit message is, if you're not there, you're not doing it. And this helps also to get clients more active. And of course, the whole Scope 3 and the CSRD discussion. You are somebody else's Scope 3. And so if you are more sustainable, you're helping them. And so this certification program and all of this information will help them as well. So there are a lot of strategies that we can think of to activate your clients so that they can start buying, or they're requesting, demanding, and be willing to pay for your more sustainability services. These are things that can be organized. These are things that other sectors are doing as well. And so now I leave you with this choice. You can be that group that says, it will pass. Sustainability is temporary. It will go away. And mind you, my guess is in rooms like this, on average, 25% thinks that. Then there's another 40% that says, no, it's important, but we'll wait for others. We'll wait for the government, we'll wait for the client, and until that time, apparently it's not interesting. I hope that this presentation has convinced you that there's a lot of things that you can do. And there's this 30% of you that says, no, wait a minute, this is important, it's my sector, it's my future, we need to invest in this. We need to take our own future in our own hands. And this group will change the sector. And so all of these 5 things you can organize. You have an amazing branch organization. You are very well organized. You know each other. You are like a big family. If you want, you can organize all of these things. And then with that, take the sector in your own hand and hopefully be able to turn this from a threat into a business opportunity. Thank you so much.
Any questions?
And we have time for questions, I believe.
Is it working? It's working. Lucas, thanks very much. A question involving the customers. We live in a very global clients. They don't all see the urgency to be involved. In Europe, yes, everybody's convinced there's an urgent matter here, but in other parts of the world, maybe not. How do you deal with that?
Exactly. And so I'm going to apply theory to your question because it's a very relevant question. One of the things that we need is urgency. If urgency is one of the conditions that is not there, the transition will stop. And so indeed the question is, how do you create urgency? Create urgency around here, but also for your clients. And so one of the things is measure your impact. They need to, if we don't know what the impact is of this sector, then we know we have a problem, but it's not, we don't consider the problem. So the measurement of how much plastics, how much CO2, how much of these issues that are relevant to this sector, you need to have that figure. Then all of these clients will start to aware that you are their problem because they need to report because of the EU regulations and their scope 3, etc. Suddenly they see you as, hey, wait a minute, we have to deal with this. And now it becomes more relevant. The other one is, like I said, there are many strategies to incentivize them to make sure that they're winners and losers also for your clients. And so in other sectors, like I said, right, there are rankings. Who's the most sustainable client? Or the most sustainable, I'm sorry, on a Dutch word this comes to mind, opdrachtgever. Yeah, client, let me leave it at that. The most sustainable customer. You have rankings not done by you, obviously, right, because you are objective. But you can organize that these rankings are there, which of the big corporates are taking this serious or not, and then these rankings appear every year. You can give them, like I said, awards. There are many different strategies that you can use to incentivize your clients to find this more important from now on. Yeah, but that requires a strategy. It will not happen by itself. If you're not careful, what will happen is that they will start, because they are part of the EU regulation, they will start to send you all kinds of surveys. Please fill this in. And as soon as you do that, now you're becoming a commodity. They will look at it, okay, so this one is better than that one. Either you lower the price, and so they will start using this as negotiating. This happens everywhere. And so the answer is to turn that around and say, no, we have something valuable that we can. If we do this and you buy this product from us, you can also claim it. We will reward you, and you decommoditize yourself. Good.
Hi, Luca. Thank you very much for opening our eyes. It was very good. I have a very dumb question.
I'm sorry, it's hard for me to hear.
I have a very, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The microphones are pointed that way, so it's for me difficult to hear.
Oh, so I'm hearing myself. Listen, I have a very dumb question. It's the first time I see this. I think your presentation was very good. But I would like to understand, if you really want to get us certified, where do you start? Because sometimes I look around my business and I see that we're trying to do things. But how you categorize them, how do you put them in order? Where do you start? I mean, I saw your presentation, but can we go to a practical way of doing things if you really want to get certified?
Yeah. So the first one is we as a sector, we need to create a standard, a product. What is a green move or sustainable relocation? What is that? I'm not an expert, but I guess you can come up with many ideas on what that is and what it is not. And so there's a process that you can organize where together with input from you, but also input from your clients and other stakeholders, perhaps NGOs or governments, what is a sustainable move? You can define that. You can make that measurable. And this is happening. I mean, if you Google how many standards there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of standards. And so this is a process that you can organize, how to develop a standard for a sustainable move. That's one. Then the second is organizations like yourself perhaps who say, okay, I want to be able to offer this, then you need to become certified. So there will be an auditor that visits you, and there are other certification programs already. And so there are many ways to organize this so that the client knows that if I order this product with you, then I know that I'm getting the real stuff. I know the impact of it, and I can claim it as a client as well. And so this is how a very first step how you can do it. And that's when you move from a project to a competitive phase. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucas, for your very illuminating talk. It may be just my assumption, but I inferred from your presentation that you were mainly discussing business to business. Now, a big part of our industry is business to private clients. And so one of the barriers that we face is going to Mr. and Mrs. Jones and saying, oh, by the way, we're a green mover, but it's going to cost you more to move.
Yep.
So what would you think is a strategy for our industry? Because that is probably by far the biggest barrier. The corporates will probably come on board because they'll be able to gain their carbon credits and things along the line. But the end user is the person that's paying the cost. Yep. How do we strategize around that?
Very good question. And so this is where every sector is faced with, right? The consumer. The usual certified or sustainable product will which is more expensive, will not get a market share higher than 3, 4, 5%. And so at the end, in order to make it for everybody the business as usual, we'll need to go all the way to phase 4. But for now, it is here. And as you can see, this green line, it doesn't go up higher than about 15 to 20%. And so I would focus on the business to business first. You can always offer to some clients. Some clients might say, hey, you know what, that's important for me, but it will probably not be the biggest driver, unfortunately. If it were, then it's easy, because then we'll be selling it, and that is unfortunately not the case. So the business to business market, I could imagine, I'm not an expert in your sector, but I can imagine that that's the place to start. With that, we will be able to create more market share, more volume. The price will come down a little bit. It becomes more standardized as well. And then we're able to slowly build it up also for the consumers. Till eventually, this is how it happens, because there's no other way anymore.
One more question.
Thank you for your great presentation. I want to know what's your opinion about the netting organization, the carbon netting organizations that sell the carbon in order to net their carbon footprint emissions.
You mean compensation?
Compensation,
Offsetting.
the offset.
Yeah. That is a can of worms. There are some good, and there are some... it's a little bit of a Wild West out there, is my understanding. And so the old way of doing it, where you buy the carbon credits and then somewhere in the world there's a forest that would be magically appearing and then everything will be fine, that is no longer really a credible issue. So it's very important that this opportunity or this option is very credible. But it should always, in my opinion, be what is left over. So first we need to do the right things as our industry, and what is left over, that could be part of the package as well. But hopefully at the end, that's why I think it's very important that your sector also commits to zero waste, zero emission. Ultimately, that should no longer be necessary because everything is zero emission. But until that, credible schemes can help in offsetting. Yeah.
Last question.
It's hard for me to see because of the light. So.
Hello. I was just thinking, do you imagine that each small removal company should sit and invent the wheel and come up with a green move? Or would it be better if the suggestions came from an organization like FIDI, and we all work the same way instead of we all sit there as an individual?
That's a very good question. It depends on the sector, but what I've seen here is that there are many family-owned businesses, relatively small. There are some bigger ones, but it's relatively small. And it's very hard, or I would not recommend that some of you would have your own standard there and then others would do the same thing over there. And so it would make sense that an organization like FIDI or similar organizations would start developing such a certification program. And there's even, and there are plenty of examples there, that you could say for smaller organizations, this is what we require, and it's not the same level of effort for the larger organizations. So you can even make it specific or modular in that sense, so it's also doable. But to answer your question, it makes sense that this is done, for example, by an organization like FIDI. Yeah. But very important that if they do it, that organizations like you, their members, say, and if you do it, I want to become certified. I want to differentiate myself in the market. Yeah.
Well, last question.
Okay.
Please.
Again, thank you for your presentation, but just trying to think a little bit different. In our cases, we are looking to have the best packing materials, completely new, everything perfect. But how about if we go to the account or to like Coca-Cola, for example, and said, listen, from now on, your employees need to accept at least our packing to be at least half of your shipment packed with recycled materials. So it's going to be both responsibility. Our responsibility as packers, and their responsibility as paying us for the for the packing and for the move.
Yeah.
So I believe that that's something that we can share with the accounts and see and go from there, because now we are the ones that we are doing everything and not involving the accounts.
Yeah.
I think we have to do something on both sides.
Yeah. I've worked in,
at least in our industry.
I've worked in over 30 sectors where you hear this every time. It's a joint responsibility. It is true, it's a joint responsibility, but that doesn't mean that your clients will say, of course, I will pay half or I will pay for it. That's not how it works in this phase. And the reason is that for them, if you don't do it, I'll go for somebody else, right? So in many sectors, it's almost like, right, if you don't do it, I will go to somebody else who wants to do it. So you're in that sense almost a commodity. And so the trick is not to plead with them and say, listen, why don't you pay for it and let's do it together, but to offer something that is of value for them. And the value is, what can they claim? What can Coca-Cola claim? And because they are under a lot of pressure, a lot of organizations are aiming at Coca-Cola. And so what can they claim if they work with you? And so it's not something to negotiate, it's something that, to build something that is desirable for them to buy. And then, and there are other strategies, like I said, to put pressure on them as well, or to reward them, etc. And so it's for the phase that we're in, the competition phase, it is how can we persuade the Coca-Colas to start doing it like this. Does that make sense? I can give you countless examples of agricultural value chains where farmers would say the same thing, right? I need to do all of these things in order to become climate neutral or sustainable, and it will cost me a lot of money. Will you be at least willing to pay more for it? And the client says no, because if you don't do it, I will go for somebody else. So it becomes a right to deliver, and that is a very dangerous. That will happen, but that will probably become will be hopefully a little bit later. Until that time, we need to make sure that we turn this into a business opportunity for them.
The issue in our case, or I think, is that if we use recycled materials, the service of the product will be the same at the end. There won't be any difference. You know, it's just how it looks.
I just want to say, then please make sure that what you do is something that they appreciate and that they can claim as well. So you need to understand what is of value for Coca-Cola. Why is this important for them? You need to make it relevant for them. And so you need to sell this as an opportunity for them, and if they do it, they can claim they have value, they can use it in their CSR report, they can use it in their reporting for the CSRD, they can use it in their marketing. But what is then what you offer them that they can do that? If you don't do it, why should I pay for it? This is unfortunately the reality of what we see in many value chains.
I see a drink happening in the bar later with you two.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, Lucas, my friend. First and foremost, you are true to character. You delivered a great presentation. Thank you for recognizing that we're special. We like to think we're special. We tell each other we're special, and we are special. So thank you for acknowledging that. That is appreciated from our side.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You really, really triggered something here. You said here that we had about 40%. I have to say, for a keynote speaker, we're very, very pleased with the attendance in the audience today. Thank you for those that have come, honorable. You've really got things going here and planted some seeds with us. We are doing some things. We're not all that bad. Huh? We have our carbon calculator that's on its way. We are working as a coalition to make these definitions and work as a village, but it does take a village.
Yeah.
And it's not just us. And I refer to, I'm an ice hockey guy. I'm from Canada. Our team is Toronto Maple Leafs. And our team was just in the playoffs. And there's a couple of differences in teams in sports dynamic that I can't help but draw the parallel that I saw today. In Toronto, when we go to the rink, the fans sit there and wait for the stars on the ice, the celebrities, the overpaid hockey players to generate energy in the crowd. And then when they perform, we react. In other venues, it's the fans behind the scenes that are giving energy to the team. And there's a slight nuance there. And I think what you're saying is that what we're saying as FIDI is that we need the team to give us energy as well. We need the support. to get through this. It does take a village. And really, the seeds you've planted with us today, meaningful. I believe we're on a good journey. A reminder that we need to keep going. And Lucas, tremendous presentation. Thank you for stimulating us this morning and getting us thinking in the right direction. Mr. Lucas Simons.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Pleasure, huh? Real pleasure. Excellent.
Thank you.
Bravo.